Y'all, the level 180 update is officially out on Test Realm, and you know what that means. There's tons of level 180 gear to talk about. So in Test Realm right now, there are 4 new gear templates that are available at level 180, and even some new jewels and pins that are very interesting. So I thought I would talk about all of them in one convenient place so that y'all can get the best bang for your buck when Darkmoor rolls into live realm. So the 4 templates, right? 2 of them are available from Darkmoor, and 2 of them are available from updating existing level 170 gear from the Lemuria raid. So let's talk about the Darkmoor stuff first, right? It's basically just an upgrade to the Wallaroo gear that we already got. So essentially, right, there's 2 sets, an offensive one that doesn't give shads, the Reaver set, and the defensive one that doesn't give crit, the Stalker set. You could basically upgrade these for slight increases for every single school in terms of stats. Some of them get bigger upgrades, some of them don't. And just like Wallaroo, if you want to craft this gear, all you have to do is defeat various bosses a few times, sometimes 5 times, sometimes 15. But if you do that, you basically unlock the recipes from this guy, Cesar, so you can craft anything in Darkmoor. Now, I thought I'd do a side-by-side of the Reaver set, the 170 versus the 180, I guess. And as y'all can see, nothing too crazy in terms of upgrades, but there are big upgrades in terms of damage and resist for sure for death when you compare the hat. Right, 2 damage, 1 pierce, and a little bit of extra res. Like, you can't really complain about that. I honestly think the hat is really good because it has an item card blade. So this is something that they've done. They've made the hat give an item card blade instead of like an aura that honestly you wouldn't even use over a frenzy in PvE anyways. And it is a 45 blade, y'all, so highly recommend crafting the hat for the slight upgrades, but definitely the item card. And they keep this energy with the item card by adding a balance blade item card to the Reaver set upgrade at level 180. And as you might notice, this one is also simply just a slight HP and resist upgrade for death. Nothing ridiculous, but once again, you're seeing that blade really give you a reason, because if you have a hat that gives you one type of blade and a robe that gives you another that you can stack, you're looking at a lot of nice little, like, you know, nice utilities in PvE. And the real story definitely does seem to be the boost for death. For example, y'all might notice the re-damage, the re-resist, the re-pierce, all given as an upgrade if you go from the level 170 Reaver set to its analogous set at level 180. Finally, the wand, I would say this is like the main set that you're going to want to get from Darkmoor compared to Wallaroo. You're just looking at a little bit of pierce and damage for schools like that. I would argue, depending on if you're a damage school or not, you might see a bigger upgrade or not. Now, here's where things get interesting. Normally, the Athames, rings, amulets, and decks are not really anything to write home about. However, there are some big changes happening with jewels that I do think make some of these sets better than before. So when comparing the Reaver Athame to, I guess, its equivalent at level 180, all you're really getting is a little bit of HP and a little bit of damage. But the defensive set, right, this is a set that I don't think gets a lot of love. I'd say most people, when they're using like the Stalker set, they really only ever use the robe because you're looking at a lot of HP and shads. That's something that you might want in PvP. But the Stalker equivalent might actually be really, really good because there's outgoing on Athames now for every single school, and even more ways to get access to healing. The big takeaway from this is you're giving up block, but you're getting outgoing, and you're also giving up a square socket for a triangle socket. So you are gonna have less health, but you might get another stat like accuracy or pip chance that's related to that triangle socket. But the reason why that outgoing from that Stalker set at level 180 alternative is so important, right, is because every school is getting mending pins. Now, this is a very, very big deal. If y'all don't know how mending pins have worked, normally they don't do this damn much, and also they haven't been accessible to every school before. Up to now, right, the only schools that could get access to healing were schools that can naturally heal. So it used to be that fire would get mending pins, storm would get mending pins, life would get mending pins, and balance would get them. Now, whether you're death, myth, or ice, you also have access to the outgoing stat in the form of a shield pin. What this means is shield pins on hats and boots, those are the only, like, you know, things that give you shield pins. Those might be more important than ever on certain schools that never had to think about healing, like death, myth, and ice. But also, one thing that I find very interesting is that they're seeming, anyways, to tie healing to damage per pip. So as in, it's not about whether your school can naturally heal or not. It seems to be about how much damage output you have. So for example, right, life, they get a 46% outgoing pin. Keep in mind, you could use 2 of these on a setup with maximized shield pins. And that's not even counting the outgoing that you can get from things like Athames, rings, drawings, pets even, right? So you're looking at a minimum of 100% outgoing and then some added on. But see how life gets a life mending pin that gives them 46%? The ice mending pin, that is right, ice, a school that can get about 90% resist with this update. They're also looking at 46 outgoing. It seems that if you're a heavier hitting school with higher damage per pip, you seem to get lower outgoing, which is why we saw the death one be a little bit lower, the myth one even lower, just 33%. But the reason why that's important is because shield pins are only available right now from a couple of sets, the stalker set being one of them. So you might actually want to consider giving up some offense and definitely some crit for the stalker boots for the first time in a while, because you get a shield pin in return for that sword pin that you normally would get for the other set. So the defensive set is a little bit more useful for more schools, is the big takeaway from all these mending pins. Now, as far as the amulet, ring, and deck, they're just direct upgrades to Wallaroo gear. I don't really think they're really worth upgrading unless you really want to like optimize your stats completely. And that brings us to the other gear templates, right? There's actually other ways to upgrade your gear, and that's with level 180 raid gear. Now, if y'all don't know, the Lemuria raid dropped at level 170 as its max level, so all the gear you got from that raid was level 170 gear. But as they did with the previous time they did a raid into a level cap increase, you can basically upgrade all of that gear to new level 180 gear. So there's two new templates, and basically what they do, they give up accuracy or pip chance, but both of these templates give shad rating, which could be important with all of the shads that you end up using with this update. But this is a side-by-side of the Fairy Kai level 170 gear. This is just a reskinned, basically, like, you know, level 170 raid gear set. This is what a lot of people buy if they don't want to raid. But this is the same gear template, right? What you're seeing is very, very similar damage output, but just slightly better. If you upgrade the Lemuria gear, right, you get a little bit of extra crit, a little bit of extra health, a little bit of extra damage. This is a side-by-side of the highest damage level 170 raid gear to the highest damage level 180 raid gear from the templates that drop in the Lemuria raid. Once again, you're looking at quite a bit of extra damage, a little bit of extra resist as well. I would definitely upgrade this like in an instant, especially if I was interested in PvP, right? Like all of these gear sets, they're based on the fact that stat caps are going to increase as well. So you're going to want to take advantage of this if you already run this gear. And as mentioned earlier, once again, they seem to be putting some massive upgrades on the boots for some reason. For death, for example, you're looking at big increases in resist. You're looking at 4 extra resist, 3 extra damage, and 3 extra pierce on the gear template from the Lemuria raid that gives up pip chance. Now, this little template has always seemed to be one of the highest damage templates in the game, normally outvaluing the Reaver gear, and I guess whatever the equivalent is at level 180 in Darkmoor. So it's not surprising that it gives so much damage. This is still a very, very big increase considering how much extra resist you get as well. And from this Lemuria raid, very, very notably drops the new highest damage wand for every single school. That is right, y'all, you're looking at a 30 damage wand for death. Every school always seems to get the highest damage wand from this raid template. I feel like that's been the case since the Crying Sky raid dropped this template. So if you're looking at purely maxing out your stats, obviously the wand is a must-have, but I would argue all the pieces of gear from both of these templates, depending on whether you're willing to give up accuracy or pip chance for shads, are worth it. The way you craft this gear, you have to get the level 170 stuff first and then get the extra reagents that drop in the raid. These tend to drop about 60 at a time for each raid victory, but you can basically craft it one at a time. This is a very, very tedious process, especially if you also have to craft the 170 version. So if you don't know, right, this level 170 gear, in order to make this, you have to make a grave attunement staff, and to make one of these you have to have 150 chips. So either you have to make the 170 gear and then use that plus extra chips to upgrade to 180, or you get lucky enough to get the 170 gear dropped, but you still need tons of victories, tons of chips to upgrade this stuff. So it is kind of annoying, in my opinion, to actually go out of your way to do that with raid gear. But yes, the best damage wand drops from this, very, very good increases in resist, especially on things like the boots and the robe, depending on which template you're talking about. Definitely worth getting raid gear from this update as well. Hopefully this video gave y'all a good first look at the gear. There's a lot to talk about though, especially with the way the pins and the healing and all of that is going to work. There will be a more in-depth look at this coming to y'all very, very soon, especially how it's going to affect things like school identity, like which school might be the best. It might affect a lot of stuff. So there will be a more in-depth look, especially at the jewels and pins. So make sure you turn on notice for that. But if you're wondering how to get the gear, what the new gear looks like, a side-by-side comparison. Hopefully this video was helpful. Let me know y'all's thoughts in the comment section. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.